Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction and review for What We Do in the Shadows, Season 5, Episode 8, The Roast. There's one thing I need to say here first and foremost. Yes, very well, thank you. Uh, that's going to be my whole commentary for the rest of this episode. I'm just going to say that again and again and again.
Oh, Laszlo, I thought that was going to really pay off in a bigger way than it did.
What a useless B story that was. It was funny, don't get me wrong, but I was just like, really? All of this for that?
Yeah, it was a pretty useless B story, but the rest of this was so good. I mean, Guillermo has his secret out to everybody. Everybody knows, even including the guy who's got a big mouth on her. Oh my
Yes.
goodness. Nandor is the only person who doesn't know at this point. I mean, even the Baron knows. Like, it is crazy how many people know. And he is a vampire now. And like there was so many touching moments. Like I don't know how this is going to end with Nandor, and it really hurts my heart because he really cares about him. I mean, that whole scene near the end when he was like, "Let me know that you're the real Guillermo. I'm going to test you. What was in the card you gave me the first day you became my familiar?" And he was like, "It would be a dream to be a vampire, but it is my honor to be your familiar." I was like, oh my goodness. And Nandor's like mouthing the words along with it. He has memorized this card after all these years of how important Guillermo is to him. He's going to be so heartbroken.
This episode is really emotional in a way, and it's not what
It's so emotional.
it's not what I expected at all going into it. Like, I will be honest. I mean, just from the title alone, I thought the roast stuff was gonna last longer. I didn't know that Laszlo was just gonna say a few words the entirety of the episode. I thought that this was gonna be the one where Guillermo's secret was out to Nandor, and then the last couple of episodes were gonna be dealing with the aftermath. And maybe Nandor's gonna learn in episode 9. Who knows? Maybe it's gonna be the cliffhanger at the end of this season, but being the last person to know something like this, especially a personal secret, that is a real stake in the heart. Like, that's really tough.
Especially with just how deeply Nandor really cares for him. I mean, we've seen it throughout all the seasons that he does really care for him. Of course, Nandor is Nandor and he's a bit of a dum-dum with a lot
Yeah.
of stuff. But at the same time, I mean, like it really came out in this episode just how much he pays attention to detail with Guillermo, how much some of the things Guillermo did for him really mean to him. And it's gonna break him apart. Like it's gonna break him apart.
Yeah, we have the stage set up now for our emotional, probably still fun because it's what we do in the shadows, but it's going to be a very interesting end of this season. Now, before we do go further, be sure to join our Patreon. We have a link in the description below. Every Monday night we have a live stream talking about what we do in the shadows.
Yep.
And you know what I'm going to say to everybody who joins our Patreon?
Mhm.
Yeah, very well, thank you. Also,
Matt's gonna be dressed up like a vampire on Halloween over on our live stream there, so you don't want to miss that.
and I'm just gonna do that Laszlo line. No, I'm not.
No, 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 no,
I
no, no.
will.
I won't let that happen to you guys.
I am Laszlo. What if I'm just actually Jackie Daytona? What if I don't? What if I'm not even a vampire? Maybe I'm dressed as someone pretending to be someone else when I'm really a vampire.
No.
No, vampire will happen. Also, check out our other coverage. We have Only Murders in the Building that's on
Mhm.
right now. We are getting set to cover the morning show
Mhm.
season 3, and we're also working our way through Shrinking and The Bear, 2 other really great half-hour shows.
Okay, so here's a question for all of you guys. How do you think Nandor is going to find out? Is Guillermo actually going to tell him, or is he going to find out by accident? And for me, I really hope that Guillermo decides to tell him. Too many people know now. Basically, everybody, Colin, Baron, everybody knows. He really needs to sit down with him and tell him what he's done. And in this episode, especially, like, Guillermo really wanted to be a vampire. I mean, he let Derek turn him. And I
Yeah.
mean, Nadja said it a few episodes ago where she was like, you had the opportunity to be turned by a legend. Like, how could you let Derek be the one to do this when you had Nandor, who, loves you and cares about you? He's a legend. Like, what a mistake. And I think Guillermo knows that it's a mistake. But this episode, especially, I think it really hit him what a betrayal this is when Nandor was really getting into, like, do you remember that card you gave me the first day you were my familiar? I saw it all over Guillermo's face where he was just like, this is really a betrayal. Like, I really messed this up.
I had this tinfoil hat theory earlier this season, and I'm gonna stick with it. That this is what's ultimately going to happen here is that Guillermo and Nandor, they've gone through a lot this season already. They go through a lot with the Baron just in this episode alone, as crazy and ridiculous as a lot of this was. But I feel like at some point before the finale, Nandor is going to decide, Guillermo, it's time. I will turn you. And sorry, apologies to Nandor for that impression. But I think what's going to happen is that this is all going to come to a head. Guillermo's going to realize he knows what happens if he's already a vampire and Nandor tries to turn him.
He's going to explode.
Yes, and nobody wants to be a million little pieces. I think what will happen is it's going to be a situation where Guillermo takes Nandor somewhere. I don't need this to be some big bombastic reveal. I think it's more effective if Guillermo is just like, Nandor, I have something to tell you. I have already been turned. This happened. I'm so sorry. And of course, Nandor, he may be a dum-dum, but I think he's going to ask, does anyone else know? And then he's going to be like, yeah,
everyone.
And that's going to be the way that it plays out. And I hope personally that this all happens at the end of episode 9. That way we have a finale that we can deal with that fallout, and then we can have a cliffhanger that takes us into something new in season 6. I don't want season 6 to just be Nandor being mad at Guillermo the whole time, because then that means they're not going to be around each other as much.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that's where we're going. I do think that it's going to happen in the last episode. There's going to be such sadness around Nandor that he's probably going to go off and try to deal with his feelings. It's going to be then kind of a search for Nandor. Is he going to come back? Is he not going to come back?
It's going to be really sad if Nandor's gone from these people. I'm sure Nandor will be funny no matter where he is, but I love the ensemble. I love these people.
I do too, but I do think that for Nandor, there's going to be some self-reflection. He is a character that, even though he's a bit of a dum-dum, he has gone through a lot of different things for self-reflection. We've seen him sort of at retreats, reading I'm okay, you're okay. He's gone through a lot to try to figure out who he is, what he's missing in his life, and what he really wants. And I think we all can see what he really wants is a life companion. He wants somebody who's like, Laszlo has Nadja, Nadja has Laszlo, and he wants somebody like that. We saw him try to get a wife again and try to connect with his friend Alexander at the gym. He really wants somebody who's his companion. And because Guillermo did this thing and they've been pulled apart a lot this season, I think we're going to see when he finds out, he's going to be really hurt. He's going to go on another journey where he will eventually come around to be like, okay, you did this thing, but now you're a vampire. So now your life is eternal. We can be companions. I feel like this is the ultimate end game.
It's definitely what I want. I think it's what a lot of us want, where Nandor and Guillermo, it's such a cheesy line, but they complete each other in a lot of ways.
Yeah, they do.
They understand one another. I feel like we can still get there because I don't think Nandor has it within him to kill Guillermo. I understand everything that was set up this season.
No, or himself. None of that's happening.
Okay, let's talk about everything else now, because I didn't expect to see Baron back. And this is partially my fault. It's just I had forgotten over the years about everything that happened with the Baron to basically end up turning him into a vampire version of a potato chip for a while. And to see all of that come back in this sort of environment, this really weird roast where Leslie's just sitting there, it was so unexpected, but it created these stakes that were really interesting.
I was so happy to see the Baron back. Like, I've seen some of you guys in the comments too, kind of being like, where's Baron? Like, he's such a good character, and he really is. And we only saw him so briefly this season where it was like, yeah, Guillermo trying to figure out, like, can you turn a vampire twice? The answer is no, right? And
Yeah.
what I had been hoping for, and it didn't happen, was that the Baron would have become curious about that. That's like, oh, okay, that actually doesn't work. You're not able to turn a vampire twice. So, like, how does this work? He's been around for centuries. Like, I thought he probably would have dug deeper into that, that by the time we got to the end of this episode, he was going to be the person that would actually know how to undo this. That it was like, oh, you brought this curiosity to me, and I've been kind of fooling around with it to figure out how this works, but it didn't play out like that. Instead, the Baron wanted to kill him because the guide opened her mouth and was just like, by the way, he is the person who let the sunshine in. Also, I don't know why I'm telling you this too, but like, he's got Van Helsing blood. Let's just, for no reason. She's so funny.
It, guy, how can you do this to our guy? You put him in severe danger. Yes, he didn't die. He hid in Nandor's coffin for a little while. He's okay, but this was such a dangerous situation. But seeing the other vampires do what they could in order to protect Guillermo, it was really fun at times, including the time where you had both Baron and Guillermo sort of tied up. So we had like this bizarre Treaty of Versailles that was being figured out between all of them. And that's where Baron starts to learn a lot of the truth. Baron is he's so dangerous in a way, and there's these big stakes around him because if you get rid of him, you're effectively getting rid of his entire line.
Yes.
He's not somebody who you can deal with all that easily. Like that's the best
Yeah.
way I can put it.
No, it's absolutely true. Yeah, if you get rid of Baron, then you get rid of everybody, and that's a problem for Guillermo. So it's really was really complicated when the Baron's just like, yeah, I'm gonna kill you, and it's like, well, Guillermo can't kill him back. So how does he survive this then? Because then it really is either him or all the other vampires he loves.
The fact that the sun came in for the Baron
Oh my
again,
goodness.
it was so hilarious. It just
But in a way that actually gave him a bit of life again. Because when
yeah,
he got up in that roast and he was just like, you guys are all soft. Like, you're even inviting humans here as much as I like Sean. Like, this,
yeah.
how is it that we're all like this now? Like, by the end of the episode, he's like, oh man, and you know what? I'm also soft. I'm not having this. But the sun coming in and, burning him again and him being able to go through the streets and scare his neighbors it was really funny.
It was really funny, and he's got a new purpose. As it turns out, the hybrids aren't completely gone, and now look at you, Baron. You can raise some others into the world. You've got a new
Yeah.
purpose in life.
And it was also a really important conversation, I think, for Baron to be having with Guillermo before he left. For the same sort of reason that I said for later on when Nandor talks about the card and, how much it meant to him and that sort of thing, that the Baron kind of had that conversation too, to just be like, oh yeah, Nandor's gonna kill you, and he's gonna be so shamed and feel so humiliated and so bad because you know there is something really special between a vampire and his familiar and the familiar to his vampire. There is this bond. You guys have this honor between each other. You have an agreement between each other. So to go and do something like that is such a betrayal of this agreement and this heart between you two.
This was a really good episode just for emotionally grounding these characters in a world that can be really silly and absurd at times. And this is coming after what I think is probably the weakest episode of the season.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't enjoy episode 7 nearly as much as any other this season. I'm glad it was a little bit longer than the others, so we had a time to really dive into a lot of this stuff, and it wasn't rushed. Once again, the effects team on this show making all of this stuff seem believable. It felt like they had to have a bigger budget for some of what they were carrying through here.
Yeah, the FX team on this show
Yeah.
is like a 10 out of 10. They do everything with nothing. It's amazing what they do.
Here's the thing that I'm sort of a little bit sad about, and this is not a fault of the episode per se. I want like 10 minutes of deleted scenes that are just people at the roast. I feel like the roast it went by way too quickly for my taste. There was so much more they could have done with that. I wanted to hear a lot from Naja. I wanted to see Sean go up there.
I wanted to see Sean go up there too.
Yeah, there was so much more potential than what they actually gave us. And I may be saying this as somebody who, I know roast humor can get very, very dark and not altogether appropriate sometimes, but I have watched a lot of roasts over the course of my life, and there's something very therapeutic about being able to laugh at yourself and have people say the worst things possible to you, but to have them say them out of love. And so I just wish that there was more of that. Also, obviously, I do wish that Laszlo's storyline ended with something more than just like, I was debating how to organize my stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that that could have really had some serious payoff because Laszlo's one of the few vampires in the group that is more in touch with how he feels about stuff, and
Yeah.
he will put himself really out there for people. I mean, we've seen him all season trying to help Guillermo. We saw him all last season raising the baby vampire Colin Robinson. Like,
Yeah.
he will put himself aside to help other people. And, having the sort of the idea of, man, I trust the science. I was really believing that I could get somewhere with this and I didn't. I thought that was going to be a much bigger payoff if that's why he was in the spot that he was in, that he could maybe then by the end of the episode get to a point where he's like, I've thought of something that I didn't think of, or I can get over it.
That's why it was such a letdown that it was what it was, because that's what I thought it was the whole episode. I really thought it was okay. He's really down on himself because all the experiments weren't working. He's struggling to get through it. Maybe the
Yeah.
roast is a way to cheer him up, to
Yep.
make him feel like himself again. And either, yeah, he was going to be saying something akin to, okay, I feel better now, or I figured it out, the light bulb has gone off. None of that. Now, tinfoil hat time.
Okay, all right.
This is probably not true, but is he just sort of saying this, oh, it was just for this other thing, when in reality he does have an idea, but he's not ready to disclose it to everyone else yet? Is this possible? I think I just want it to be possible.
I think it's possible, but because the person who was sitting with him was Naja, who
Yeah.
knows everything and knows that he was doing all these experiments, I think he would have just told her.
I think probably so. I just wish that it was something a little bit more than it was, because the rest of this episode it's just so good.
It was so good. I loved this episode. I mean, still, Naja at the vet episode is my favorite episode, but this is really close second. It was so emotional. Seeing Nandor at the window when he didn't know where Guillermo was just like, I hope he's okay out there.
Yeah.
Like, I really miss him. Like, Nandor's really in his feelings about this. And yeah, this is going to be a funny last couple episodes, but I feel like we all have to have our hard hats on because it's going to be very emotional. This show, for as funny as it is, really will squeeze your heart.
I'm putting the hard hat on. I'm just duct taping it to my head now
I
because I'm just gonna
know.
have to leave it on for the remainder of all of this. Let's just hope that no matter what happens, it will all be okay. Our vampire friends will make it through this and be fine.
Yeah.
I think episode 9 is going to be really big for a lot of this stuff. But for now, let's take a deep breath and then join our Patreon. We have that in the description below. Thank you to everyone who has
Thank
supported
you.
us over there. Live streams every Monday.
Mhm.
And we'll see you here next time.